Okay students, let's go with our next chapter, that is ecosystem. So ecosystem can be defined as, in a simple terms, ecosystem can be defined as biotic components along with its physical factors is called as ecosystem. Biotic community along with its physical factors together with physical factors is known as ecosystem. The definition looks similar to that of the ecology, but while defining the ecology, the importance was given in the definition. The importance was given on the relation between the biotic and abiotic components. But while defining the ecosystem, here we are giving importance to both biotic and abiotic factors, how they are interacting together to perform as a single unit. Here we are going to study how an ecosystem or an area or a given habitat performs as a one whole unit. But in defining ecology, we gave importance to the interactions between the organisms, that is between the two organisms or with the surrounding environment. But while in the ecosystem, we are going to discuss how an organism or how an habitat, one particular habitat along with its physical and biotic components constructing as a whole unit. Here we are discussing how it performs as a whole unit. Okay, so ecosystem can be defined as biotic components along with its physical factors is called as ecosystem. The concept of ecosystem was proposed by A.G. Tansley. He defined ecosystem as a system resulting from the integration of living and non-living factors of environment. A system resulting from integration of living and non-living factors, that is integration of biotic and abiotic components. Okay, ecosystem can be recognized as self-regulating and self-sustaining unit. It is a self-regulating and self-sustaining unit. The meaning of this self-regulating, self-sustaining, how the ecosystem is self-regulate itself, how it self-sustains itself, you will understand by the end of this chapter. Okay, next, there have been various terms given to the term ecosystem. Instead of ecosystem, many different terms are there, say like biocoinosis, microcoinism, biosystem, etc. But the term ecosystem is most preferred and most accepted. Okay, there are different types of ecosystem. We can classify ecosystem into different types. The first classification is natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Natural ecosystem means which has formed naturally. Artificial ecosystem means the ecosystem which we have designed. Okay, natural ecosystem, it is again divided into two types. One is terrestrial ecosystem, another one is aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystem is the ecosystem which is present on land. Aquatic ecosystem is the ecosystem which is present on water. Aquatic ecosystem, it is again divided into two types: freshwater ecosystem and marine water ecosystem. So freshwater, as you all know, the name suggests, and marine water is nothing but oceans or salt water. Next, freshwater is again divided into two types. One is lentic ecosystem, another one is lotic ecosystem. Lentic ecosystem means the stationary water like pond or a lake. Lotic ecosystem means flowing water like rivers and streams. And artificial ecosystem. Artificial ecosystem may be cropland, aquarium, and the garden. These are all artificial ecosystem. This is the broad classification of ecosystem. Ecosystem can be classified into natural or artificial. Natural is again classified into terrestrial or aquatic. Aquatic is again classified into freshwater or marine water. Freshwater is again classified into lentic and lotic. Okay. Next, structure of ecosystem. Okay, the ecosystem has two components. The structure of ecosystem, the ecosystem has two components. They are biotic components and abiotic components. In our previous chapter, that is organisms and population, we discussed what abiotic components are, like temperature, water, soil, etc. And now in this chapter we are discussing only the biotic components. Okay, biotic components are classified into 5 categories, that is producers, consumers, parasites, detritivores or scavengers, and another one is decomposers. Usually there are only two classification. One is producers, in most of the textbooks they have given producers, consumers and decomposers, but I have added still more points here. One is producers, another one is consumer, another one is parasites, another one is detritivores or scavengers, and another one is decomposers. Okay. In most of the textbooks, there are only three components. One is producers, consumers, and decomposers. But in a broad sense, I have added parasites and also detritivores and scavengers. Okay, let's go with producers. What are producers? All the plants are come under the component producer. Why? Because they prepare their own food material. They're also called as primary producers. And next one is consumers. All the organisms which cannot prepare their own food, they depend on other organisms for their food, they are called as consumers. They are also called as heterotrophic organisms. Heterotrophic organisms means which cannot prepare their own food materials, depend on other organisms. These heterotrophic organisms can be of it is of three types. One is primary consumers. Primary consumers means herbivores which directly feed on the primary producers. And next one is secondary consumers, means the animals which feed on the herbivores. And next one is tertiary consumers, or top carnivorous animals which feed on secondary consumers. This is about the consumers. Consumers is of, they are heterotrophic organisms. It is of three types: primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. Primary consumers means herbivores, organisms which feed on plants. And next, secondary consumers which feed on herbivores. And tertiary consumers, they are called as top carnivores. They feed on secondary consumers. And next one is parasites. Parasites, they are the heterotrophs, derive their food directly from the organism of all trophic levels. They depend on all trophic levels, that is food, producers, consumers, etc. And next one is detritivores or scavengers. Detritivores or scavengers are the organisms which feed on dead remains of the plants and animals. Which feed on dead remains of plants and animals. They cannot prepare their own food. They are also heterotrophic. Usually they are called as saprophytic. They feed on dead remains of plants and animals. They are called as detritivores or scavengers, like millipedes, crabs, sea stars, snails, earthworms, mites, etc. And next one is decomposers. Decomposers, as the name suggests, all the microorganisms, bacteria and fungi, which convert the complex food material into simple inorganic ones, are called as decomposers. Here, the detritivores or scavengers, they feed on complete organism. They feed on complete, if any leaf is there which has fallen, or any animal which has died, they go and they feed on direct animals, parts of the animals. Whereas decomposers, they feed at the molecular level. And next one is functions of ecosystem. As an ecosystem, it has many functions. So before going into the functions, we have to understand some of the terms used in the functions of ecosystem. The first one is trophic levels. Based on their nutrition, organism can be classified into different levels. Based on their nutrition, organisms are placed in a specific place in the food chain. They are called as trophic levels. Based on the nutrition, if the producers, they prepare their own food material, so they are produced in one trophic level. Organisms which feed on plants, they are depend on plants, so they are placed in one different trophic level. Next, secondary consumers are placed in different trophic level. Tertiary consumers are placed in different trophic level. Decomposers are placed in different trophic levels. This is known as trophic levels. Based on their nutrition, organisms are occupy specific place in the food chain. That one is called as trophic level. Okay. Usually plants are producers. Plants are also called as producers. They are also called as primary producers. They occupy the first trophic level. Next, the consumers. Consumers, it is of three types. Primary consumers, which feed on plants. They occupy the second trophic level. Next, secondary consumers occupy third trophic level, and tertiary consumers occupy fourth trophic level. See here, producers, which are occupying first trophic level, primary consumers occupying second trophic level, secondary consumers occupying third trophic level, and usually tertiary consumers or top carnivores are occupying the next trophic level, that is T4, and here the decomposers, which are occupying fifth trophic level. Whenever the producers die, the decomposers attack. Whenever the consumers die, decomposers attack. Whenever the secondary consumers die, decomposers attack. tertiary consumers die, decomposers attack. Hence, these decomposers, they attack any of the trophic levels. Usually, producers are occupying first trophic level, primary consumers occupying second trophic level, secondary consumers having third trophic level, tertiary consumers occupying fourth trophic level, and decomposers occupying fifth trophic level. Okay, this is about trophic levels. Next one is functions. Okay, ecosystem performs different functions. Those functions are decomposition, productivity, energy flow, ecological succession, and nutrient cycling. These are the major functions performed by the ecosystem. First, we shall go with the decomposition. What is decomposition? Decomposition, a process of breaking down a complex organic materials into simple inorganic ones, is called as decomposition. Decomposition is also called as putrefaction, and it is also called as decay. Okay, the process of breaking down of complex food material into simple inorganic ones is called as decomposition, and it is also the another name for decomposition is called putrefaction. Okay. Okay, the dead remains of plants, animals, and fecal matter, it is called as detritus, raw material for decomposition. Dead remains of plants and animals and also the fecal matter, that is called as detritus. Waste material is called as detritus, and that becomes the raw material for decomposition. Okay, now how the decomposition takes place? Decomposition takes place in 5 steps, that is fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. These are the 5 steps. Okay. Now let's study what these 5 steps are. In order to make it simple, I have designed, there is a graphical small diagrammatic representation which makes us to understand the terms very easily. Okay, detritus means the dead remains of plants, animals, and fecal matter. It is first attacked by detrivores like millipedes, centipedes, or crustaceans. They first attack that type of detritus and they make the detritus into fragments. That is called as fragmentation. The first step is fragmentation. What happens in the fragmentation? If any dead material is there, then the macroorganisms, not microorganisms, macroorganisms, they attack and they make fragments. They make this large dead material into a simpler or fragmented ones. That one is known as fragmentation. The first step is fragmentation. The detritus is formed into fragments, is divided into fragments by detrivores. Detrivores are millipedes, centipedes, crustaceans, etc. Then this fragmented materials, some of the inorganic materials which are released from this process is entering into the deep layers of the soil. The inorganic materials, as the detrivores attack on detritus, some of the inorganic materials, not the complete inorganic materials, some of the inorganic materials is released into the soil. This soil entering into the deep layers of the soil is known as leaching. Inorganic materials which are entering into the deep layers of the soil, inorganic materials formed by the fragmentation which are entering into the deep layers of the soil is known as leaching. And next one is, this is the second step, that one is leaching. And next one is catabolism. Catabolism, what happens when the detritus attack on the detrivores attack on the detritus and makes it fragments, and this fragmented dead body or a fragmented material is attacked by the microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. What bacteria and fungi do? They secrete an extracellular enzymes. They secrete an extracellular enzymes so that those complex organic matter is converted into the simple inorganic ones. That simple inorganic ones is nothing but humus. Okay, this process is called as humification. Here what happens is the organic matter which is present within the dead remains of the organisms, it is converted into a humus. This process is called as humification. The process of conversion of organic materials into simple organic ones is called as humus. Humus is a simple ball-like structure with more number of inorganic material. Here the humus is partially decomposed. It is not completely decomposed. It is partially decomposed. Next, this partially decomposed material, which is humus, which is undergoing mineralization, where all the minerals which are present within the humus, all the minerals which are present within the humus, it is entering into the soil. This one is known as mineralization. The minerals which are present, the inorganic minerals which are present in the tight clusters in the humus, they are released into the soil. This process is known as mineralization. Okay, these are the 5 steps of decomposition. What happens? First one is fragmentation. What happens in fragmentation? The organisms like detrivores, they are organisms which feed on detritus are called as detrivores or scavengers. They feed on the dead remains and make the dead body into different fragments. Those fragments, that process is called as fragmentation, first step. Then after fragmentation, leaching takes place. Then after leaching, the small microorganisms attack, and they, with the help of catabolism, means they produce an enzyme called as extracellular enzymes, so that help to convert organic matter into simple inorganic ones. Those inorganic materials are present in a tight cluster in a ball like form. That one is known as humus, and the process of formation of humus is known as humification. This is the partially decomposed matter, and this is completely decomposed through the process known as mineralization, and all the minerals are released into the soil. So this decomposition process is an anaerobic process. So it is an aerobic process. It requires oxygen for the process of decomposition. So anaerobic conditions, if the availability of oxygen is very less, then it affects it slows down the decomposition process. Here the temperature, soil moisture, chemical composition of the detritus plays a very important role. If there should be a minimum amount of temperature, certain degree of temperature should be needed. If there is any little decrease or increase in the temperature, then it affects the decomposition process. Even soil moisture plays a very important role. If the soil moisture is very much, then the moisture content in the atmosphere is very more, or then it decreases the decomposition process. Next is chemical composition also plays a very important role in the decomposition process. This is the first function of ecosystem, that is decomposition. Next one is productivity. Second function is what? It is productivity. So what happens in productivity? Energy which is converted, stored and transported among the different trophic levels of the ecosystem is called as productivity. Energy which is converted, stored and transported among the different trophic levels of the ecosystem is called as productivity. That is, the primary producers are there. They obtain the food material, means they prepare their own food material using the abiotic factors like sunlight, water and temperature. So then these are eaten up by the consumers. So energy is getting transferred from primary producers to the primary consumers. From primary consumers, it is transferring into the secondary consumers. From secondary consumers, it is transferring into the tertiary consumers. When an organism dies, any organism dies, it is attacked by the decomposers. So the energy keeps on changing. So the energy which is converted, stored and transported transferred among the different trophic levels of the ecosystem is called as productivity. Okay. Rate at which the organic matter or energy is synthesized at any trophic level during a given period of time is called as productivity. So here, rate at which organic matter or energy is synthesized at any trophic level during a given period of time. Amount of energy or rate of energy, rate at which the energy is prepared at one particular trophic level at a given time is called as what? Productivity. The total amount of energy prepared or synthesized by the organisms of one trophic level during a given period of time is called as productivity. So the productivity is of two types. One is primary productivity and another one is secondary productivity. So primary productivity, the amount of energy produced at first trophic level, that is by the producers. That is, amount of energy produced within the producers, amount of energy which is produced within the producers is called as primary productivity. Amount of energy produced within the consumers is called as secondary productivity. Okay, amount of energy synthesized among the producers is called as primary productivity. Primary productivity is again of two types: gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Gross primary productivity is the total amount of energy produced by the producer. Total amount of energy produced by the producer at a given area at a given time is called as gross primary productivity. Net primary productivity is the amount of energy remained out of gross primary productivity after respiration. So if what happens in net primary productivity is an organism synthesizes its energy. Plants synthesize its energy using sunlight. So here what happened is the total amount of energy which is synthesized is 100 kilojoules or 100 kilocalories. I am here, it's just an example I am quoting. It has prepared 100 kilocalories of energy. So this is 100 is the gross primary productivity of the producers. Now what happens is, out of this 100 kilocalories, it takes some around 50 to 60 kilocalories for maintenance of its body, for the maintenance of the structure of the plant body, or in simple terms, respiration. Respiration means if an organism is respiring, means a number of activities are going within the organism. So it needs that energy for respiration. Some of the energy is taken out of this 150 kilocalories of energy is used by the plants for the maintenance of its body, for the maintenance of its activities, and the amount of energy remained of this process is known as a net primary productivity. Amount of energy remained out of gross primary productivity after respiration, after maintaining its body, after maintaining its physiological activities. That one is known as net primary productivity. Okay, primary productivity is of two types: gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. What is gross primary productivity? Gross primary productivity is total amount of energy synthesized at total amount of energy synthesized by the producers at a given area at a given time is called as gross primary productivity. Net primary productivity is the total amount of energy remained out of gross primary productivity after respiration is called as net primary productivity. So at any given time we can determine or we can find how much is the net primary productivity. It is by the simple formula: net primary productivity is equal to gross primary productivity minus respiration. So I have say around 100 is the 100 is the gross primary productivity. 30 out of this 30 is used by 30 kilocalories is used by the plant, and remaining is 70. So the NPP, net primary productivity, is 70. Okay, then next one, secondary productivity. It is the amount of energy synthesized at consumers level. Amount of energy synthesized at consumers level. Here the amount of energy synthesized at producers level. Amount of energy synthesized at producers level, hence primary productivity. Amount of energy synthesized at consumers level, hence secondary productivity. Again it is of two types: gross secondary productivity and net secondary productivity. Gross secondary productivity is the total amount of plant material consumed by the herbivores minus fecal matter. So if an organism eats around 2 kgs of green leaves, then all the 2 kgs is not utilized by the plant. Some amount of the food which is eaten by the plant is eliminated as just waste. So the amount of food energy absorbed by the alimentary canal, amount of food energy absorbed by the alimentary canal is known as secondary, gross secondary productivity. Total amount of plant material consumed by the herbivores minus its fecal matter, or in simple terms, amount of food absorbed by the amount of food absorbed by the alimentary canal is known as gross secondary productivity. And next one is the net secondary productivity. Gross secondary productivity minus respiration. Here what happens is, again the same example. It has around 100, it has consumed a plant material and has synthesized around 100 kilocalories of energy. Out of this 100 kilocalories of energy, it is utilizing around 50 kilocalories of energy for its general body maintenance, that is to maintain all the physiological activities. It is in general respiration. For respiration process it is using 50 kilocalories of energy. So remaining is 50. That remained How much amount of energy remained out of gross primary productivity is nothing but net primary productivity. Net secondary productivity. Gross secondary productivity minus respiration is known as net secondary productivity. This is about productivity. And next one is energy flow. Transfer of energy through the tropic levels is called as energy flow. Transfer of energy through the tropic levels is called as energy flow. To understand the energy flow, we need to understand the laws of thermodynamics. Okay, the first law of thermodynamics is energy can neither be created nor be destroyed but can be transferred from one form to another form. It is known as first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor be destroyed but can be transferred from one form to another form. So the total amount of energy in the universe remains constant. Why? Because the energy which is present within the sun, it is absorbed by the plants and it is stored within the plants in the form of food. This food is absorbed by the herbivores, that is primary consumers. Then the energy is transferring to secondary consumers, and from the secondary consumers it is transferring to tertiary consumers. From tertiary consumers it is coming back to the decomposers, and from the decomposer it is coming back to the soil, and again it is reaching the nature. So here the total amount of energy present within the universe remains constant. This is about the first law. Then the second law, when energy is transferred from one form to another form, there is a decrease in the amount of useful energy. So whenever the energy gets transferred from one form to another form, some amount of energy is wasted or released to the atmosphere in the form of heat. So 100% of the energy transfer does not take place. Some amount of the energy is wasted. This is the second law. When energy is transferred from one form to another form, there is a decrease in the amount of useful energy. This is known as the second law. And the third law, it is also called as 10% law. Only 10% of the energy is transferred from one level to another level. 90% is lost in the process of respiration and also is wasted in the form of heat. When an energy gets transferred from one form to another form, 90% is wasted and only 10% is transferred. 90% is wasted and only 10% is transferred. This is known as 10% law. See here, and there is 100% of solar energy which is used by the plants. So out of this 100%, 48% reaches the earth. Remaining 52% is just reflected back by the atmosphere. Out of this 48%, 5% is available to the plant. 48% which is reaching the earth, only 5% is available to the plants, and remaining 43% is reflected by the surface of earth and water only. So here out of 100%, only the 5% is available to the plants. So out of this, utilizing this 5% of the plant, 5% of the solar energy, plant synthesizes, say example, 1000 kilocalories of energy. So out of this 1000 kilocalories, 900 kilocalories is used by the plant, and some amount of the 100 kilocalories is remained as net primary productivity. So here, see here, out of 100%, only the 5% is available. Utilizing this 5%, it is synthesizing 100 kilocalories of energy. Out of this 100 kilocalories of energy, the amount of energy which is entering the next tropic level is just 10%. This is about the 10% law. See here, primary producers. From primary producers enters into the primary consumers, from primary consumers to secondary consumers to tertiary consumers. This is how the transfer of energy takes place. See here, from the sun, the light is entering into the plants are absorbing the light, and while the transferring, some amount of energy is left to the or given out to the atmosphere in the form of heat. From the plants, herbivores eat. While eating, 100% of the energy is not transferred. Some amount is entering to the atmosphere, released to the atmosphere in the form of heat. From here to the secondary consumers, then again it is some amount of energy is wasting. And from here to here, some amount of energy is wasting. This is about how the energy is transferring from one form to another form. This one is known as, and next one is energy flow patterns. So there are two types of energy flow patterns we can study. One is food chain, another one is food web. So energy flow patterns is of two types. One is food chain, another one is food web. What is food chain? It is the linear transfer of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level as an organism eats another organism. It is the linear transfer of energy, no any interlinkages, just linear transfer of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level as one organism eats the other organism. As one organism eats the other organism, the energy is transferring from one trophic level to another trophic level in a linear way. It is known as food chain. So here the producers from first trophic level, the energy is entering to the second trophic level, from the second trophic level third to fourth, and fourth to decomposers. It is known as food chain. The total amount of living matter present at any trophic level at a particular time is called as standing crop. It is very important. What is standing crop? The total amount of energy which is remained or which is present at any trophic level, total amount of energy present at any trophic level at a given time is known as standing crop. Usually it is expressed in dry weight, hence it is known as biomass. When an energy is expressed in dry weight, then it is known as biomass. So food chain, again the food chain is of two types. One is grazing food chain, another one is detritus food chain. In grazing food chain, what happens? The food chain starts with herbivores. Food chain starts with the plants, means autotrophic organisms in grazing food chain. In detritus food chain, the food chain doesn't starts with the plants. It is starting with the dead remains of plants and animals. It is starting with dead remains of plants and animals. In grazing food chain, it is starting with plants. So this is the major difference between grazing food chain and detritus food chain. In grazing food chain, so there are some of the examples. In grassland, what happens? Grasses are eaten by the insects. Grasses are eaten by the insects, that is herbivores. Insects are eaten by the frogs. Frogs are eaten by the snakes. Snakes are again eaten by the very large predatory birds. And again one more, grasses are eaten by the rats and mice. These rats and mice are eaten up by the snakes. These snakes are eaten up by the large birds. And next one is rabbits. Rabbits is eaten up by the fox. Fox is eaten up by the wolf. Wolf is eaten up by the large top carnivores called as lion. Next, in pond ecosystem, what happens? Phytoplanktons, they are the primary producers which prepare their own food material. From they are eaten up by the zooplanktons. Zooplanktons are eaten up by the small fishes. Small fishes are eaten up by the large fishes, and large fishes are eaten up by the many predatory birds. Next, in forest ecosystem, trees. Large trees are the primary producers. From there, herbivores, mammals keeps eating the trees. Then it is eaten up by the lizards, birds and foxes. Then it is eaten up by the lions, tigers and etc. So here see what happens in a diagrammatic representation. Here is the grass. It is eaten up by the frog. It is eaten up by the snake, and snake is eaten up by the hawk. This is the simple grazing food chain. In detritus food chain, what happens? I already told that detritus food chain begins with dead remains of plants and animals. Dead remains of plants and animals. So it starts with dead remains. So here, any fallen leaves and dead bodies, it is attacked by the bacteria, fungi, protozoans, etc. And this is eaten up by the insect larvae of certain crustaceans, mollusks and fishes. And it is eaten up by small fishes, and it is eaten up by the large fishes. That is about detritus food chain. And next one is food web. In food chain, it is the linear way. It is the linear transfer of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level without any interlinkages. That is food chain. There were no any interlinkages. It is the transfer of energy in a linear way from one organism to another organism. Here, in the food web, what happens is there is interlinkages. It is a complex structure formed by the interlinkages of many food chains is called as food web. Complex structure formed by the interlinkages of many food chain is called as food web. Okay, see here. There is a small small diagrammatic representation. Here is the primary producers. Primary producers are, take example of grass. Grass is eaten up by the rat. Rat is eaten up by the hawk. Or sometimes it is eaten up, grass is also eaten up by the grasshopper. Grasshopper is immediately attacked by the hawk. See here, grass is eaten up by the rat. Rat is sometimes directly eaten up by the rat, and sometimes rat is eaten up by the snake, and snake is eaten up by the what? Hawk. So this food web is the most sustainable pathway. It is the most sustainable pathway. Why? Because suppose what happens is rabbits gets disappeared. Suppose the rabbit gets disappeared from the habitat, then what happens? This hawk immediately shifts to another organism. It does not depend only on the rabbit, it shifts on other organisms. When it shifts on other organism, what happens? Here there is time for the rabbit to produce its young ones, so that the number of these organisms increases. When when hawk keeps on feeding on lizards, or what happens? This lizards number keeps on decreasing. So when the lizards number keeps on decreasing, it becomes unavailable for the hawk. Then hawk directly shifts on other organism, that it may be a rabbit or it may feed on snake. So this type of pathway is most sustainable pathway. So in linear food chain, what happens? If the snake is not there, if the availability of snake is not there, then the hawk cannot survive. If availability of frog is not there, the snake cannot survive, because there is no any other food materials for the survival of this snake. It at any cost it has to find the frog for its survival. But in food web, it does not happen. If one organism is not there, it shifts to other organism, so that there is a time for another organism to grow. So this is the most sustainable pathway. And the next function is ecological pyramids. The relationship between the trophic levels can be represented graphically. The relationship between the one trophic level and another trophic level can be represented graphically. This graphical representation is called as ecological pyramids. The relationship between the two trophic levels can be expressed in graphs, can be represented in graphs. That graphical representation is known as ecological pyramids. So the relationship may be of number, biomass, and energy flow. There are three types of pyramids: pyramid of number, pyramid of energy, and pyramid of biomass. Let's go with pyramid of number. That is the number of organisms in each trophic level. So the number of organisms in each trophic level is called pyramid of number. Say this is an example of grassland ecosystem. So the total number of organisms present in each trophic level. See here is a big triangle shape. What happens is number of producers are more. In grassland ecosystem, the number of producers are more. So since the producers are more, they occupy the base of the triangle. Next, the organisms which are feeding on plants, their number will be little less compared to the producers. Their number will be little less, so they occupy the second position in the triangle. And next one is the organisms which feed on primary consumers. Their number is little less, so they occupy this position in the triangle. And next one is the organisms which feed on secondary consumers. Their number is less, so they occupy this position in the triangle. Suppose the last top carnivores which feed on the secondary consumers, their number is very, very less, so they occupy the topmost position of triangle. So this forms an upright pyramid. This grassland ecosystem forms upright pyramid, means the number of producers are more, number of top carnivores are less, so here it forms an upright pyramid. What happens in forest ecosystem? In forest ecosystem it becomes inverted. Why it is inverted? Number of producers is very less. Why? Because in forest, consider a tree, a single tree is there, so its number is only one here. Then what happens? The number of organisms feeding on the tree are little bit higher when compared to the producer, so they occupy the second position in the inverted pyramid. So the number of organisms which feeding on this, their number will be very large, so they occupy generally parasites. They occupy this position. And the number of organisms which feeding on the secondary consumers, their number will be still higher. So they occupy the inverted base of inverted pyramid. So here the number of the pyramid of number is inverted in forest ecosystem. Then in aquatic ecosystem, again it is upright pyramid. So number of planktons will be more, so their number is more. Number of organisms feeding on fishes, their number will be little less when compared to the planktons. Next, the big fishes feeding on small fishes, their number will be little less. And the organisms or the birds which feed on the fishes, their number will be less. So they occupy the topmost position. Hence, it is an straight pyramid. So in a pyramid of number, grassland and aquatic ecosystem is upright pyramid. In forest ecosystem, that is inverted pyramid. And next one is pyramid of biomass. It is the representation of total amount of organic matter present at each trophic level. What is biomass? It is the total amount of organic matter present within the each trophic level is known as pyramid of biomass. So in biomass, say for example producers, the number of producers in grassland ecosystem, number of producers are more. If you take a consider this habitat, take all the plants which are present within this habitat and weigh, it comes around, say for example 5 kgs. Then take the organisms which feed on, that is primary consumers, their number will be, their biomass will, usually their number will be less, so their biomass will be less, say around 4 kgs. Next, top carnivores which feed on the consumers, their number will be less, so their biomass will be around 3 kg. So it forms upright pyramid. It forms 5 kg, it is 4 kg, it is 3 kg, so it is upright pyramid. And next one is in forest also, it is straight pyramid. Whereas in aquatic ecosystem, that is inverted pyramid. Why inverted pyramid? Because the the zooplanktons or the phytoplanktons which prepare their food material, which consider as producers, their size will be very less. They are microscopic. Hence their biomass will be less. The organisms, the fishes which feed on this producers, there will be little larger, so their biomass will be more, and the large fishes having more biomass, so they occupy the straight inverted pyramid. Next one is pyramid of energy. Representation of total amount of energy at each trophic level is known as pyramid of energy. So the pyramid of energy is always upright. Why? Because the amount of energy keeps on decreasing as we move from one trophic level to another trophic level. The total amount of energy keeps on decreasing as we move from one trophic level to another trophic level. So always energy, the pyramid of energy is always straight. It is upright. From producers, it is 100%, it is moving 10%. See here, there is 10,000 kilojoules of energy in producers, 1000 joules in consumers, the 100 joules in secondary consumers, and 10 joules in tertiary consumers. So it is always a upright pyramid. So this is about the functions of ecosystem under that ecological pyramid. In next representation, we will see nutrient cycling and ecological succession. By that, we will complete this ecosystem. Thank you.